Greetings, everybody. It's Nanette Saylor again, here with another dose of creative inspiration. And today, I thought I would talk a little bit more about Julia Cameron and her work. Specifically, I'm going to talk today about The Artist's Way. You've heard me mention Julia Cameron a couple of times now. Once I talked about her practice of morning pages, once I've mentioned her book, A Prosperous Heart. And I thought it was time for me to share with you how I first got introduced to Julia Cameron and her work, specifically the book that she is most well known for, called The Artist's Way. In my training as a creativity coach, one of the books that we were encouraged to read and participate in and understand and really take a hard look at in our process of evolving into supporting people to be their most creative selves. One of those books was The Artist's Way. So in addition to the fact that I have gone through the process myself now a number of times, I have also facilitated creative clusters that are a key component of the practice. So Julia Cameron introduced this book back in 1992. It evolved from her work in workshops supporting people to be their most creative selves. It's a process of discovering and recovering creative self, and it is designed to be a 12-week journey. And each chapter takes the reader through not only some self-reflection, a little bit of discovery, there are some exercises and things to do, and then if you are participating as a group with the practice of the Artist's Way, you might be part of what's called a creative cluster. And the creative cluster comes together once a week to review the chapter and the experience and to share the experience that each person has had with that chapter. And this goes on for 12 weeks, and each chapter grows one to the next in the evolution of you as an individual getting in touch with your creative self. It's a process of what I like to call excavation to a certain extent. There's a lot of self-reflection and a lot of discovery that happens. And most importantly, amazing serendipitous things begin to happen because you as a participant in the process are opening up to the possibility. So in addition to the work in the book, participants in the Artist's Way are encouraged to engage. In the beginning, it was principally to engage in two practices. In addition to being a part of a creative cluster, one of the practices is this practice of morning pages. And morning pages is essentially a version of journaling intended to be done in the morning. Julia Cameron's description is that you would write longhand, not by computer. My belief, as is hers, is that there's a different effect that happens when you journal by hand. I believe you connect your heart and your head when you write longhand versus when you type. I know for me, I type too fast, so my process, the thoughts that are coming to mind speed by. When I write by hand, it's a different experience, and I have an opportunity to really feel the emotion of the things that I'm expressing. And so I encourage everyone to do your morning journaling by hand if at all possible. So Julia Cameron's version of morning pages is 3 pages longhand, and she actually specifically says 3 8.5 by 11 pages. She encourages you to use a bigger page because she says you have bigger ideas when you do that. Now, it's funny that I've been doing this for a long time, and I never attached to that specific point until the last time I facilitated a cluster just this past spring. I'd always done my morning pages in a smaller journal. So, just interesting to note that her expression, her sense is that if you write on a bigger page, you have bigger visions. Interesting. So I encourage you to follow that lead. Morning pages is a daily practice. Julia Cameron has been writing morning pages literally every day since 1992, and probably even before the book was published. And it is a practice of free flowing thought to the page. It is not intended to be edited. It is not intended to be prompted. It is simply you open the book, you write what comes to mind, or you take out the paper and you write what comes to mind. In the beginning, in fact, she encourages us not to go back and reread what you've written, because if you're new to this practice, then there is a tendency for you to go back and try to edit, or to feel like you aren't doing it right, or that you've not that there's something wrong with what you've written, that it's not intellectual enough, or it's not deep enough, or it doesn't have enough meaning. It's not enough on all those ways that it might be not enough. And the intention here is not to attach too much meaning to it. The experience is simply to begin to allow yourself to write whatever comes to mind. So some days, for example, I might sit down and there's nothing there. And I write, oh my goodness, I have nothing to say today. Oh my goodness, I have nothing to say today. And I'll continue to write that until something else comes through. And when I'm listening, eventually something else will come through. But some days my writing is pure drivel. It's nonsense. It means nothing. It's me ranting. It's a list. It's a nothing. It just has, no, I don't walk away every day. The point I'm trying to make is I don't walk away every day with oh my goodness, that was the most profound thought I ever had, right? It doesn't happen every day. But some days, on those really magical days, I do have a profound thought. I do get inspired. I do receive, in some people's language, a download of something interesting and expansive, and something that I can then take to apply in some way. But at its simplest, this is a practice of writing every morning. So in addition to participating in a cluster, if there's one available, the other part of the Artist's Way practice is morning pages every day. And then the last piece is to take yourself on what's called an artist date. And an artist date is a date with yourself. This is a solo adventure. It is not with a friend. It is not with a spouse. It is not with the girls. It is none of that. It is a once a week, 2-hour experience that you allow yourself. Doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be going to something artistic, doesn't have to be going to the museum or going to a concert, doesn't have to be a painting class or a dance class. It can be simply a walk by yourself. It can be, the intention is for, in Julia Cameron's words, for it to be mischievous. The idea here is to reconnect with your curiosity. Some of you may have followed some of my previous writings about Elizabeth Gilbert and her new conversation around curiosity. Nurturing creativity is about nurturing curiosity and pretending that you're that little girl or little boy again that didn't have all the answers, and that you're running out to see what magic you might create. So the point of the artist date is for you to have an experience that's different than your ordinary, to do something for yourself. It could be a nurturing self-care activity, but it doesn't have to be. And it could be simply that you take 2 hours to sit down and color. Or it could be that mending that you intended to do, that you haven't done forever. You're going to find a quiet place and do that without interruption. Give yourself that special time. Could be that you go to the grocery store specifically with the intention of taking in the colors and the sights and looking at all the fruits and vegetables and imagining what it would be like to create magical feasts with those things. That's the intention of the artist date. Nurture yourself and nurture your creativity. Allow curiosity and inspiration to come along. So that is the core. That's the core of the Artist's Way practice. And it initially begins with you picking up a copy of the Artist's Way book and then beginning the chapters. At the end of each chapter, there are exercises to do. And if you're not in an environment where there is a current creative cluster going on, you can always jump online to, there are a number of Facebook groups, but certainly if you join me and other conscious creators over in the Facebook group called the Conscious Creators Cafe. Over in the cafe, we are regularly having conversations about the Artist's Way, and I'll be starting up a cluster again in the fall in Boca Raton for those of you who are local. So if you're interested in that, just message me in the comments below. Any questions you have about the Artist's Way, feel free to ask. Know that it is a truly magical experience. Every person who has gone through a creative cluster experience with me is always surprised by how expanded their life becomes during the process and beyond. And they are almost always people who dramatically fought the feeling of being engaged in this practice because they didn't want to commit to a daily morning writing.